Doubleheader Trouble, written and told by Tyler Shudik, expired by Trampy. Thomas, Percy, and Edward enjoy working on the line, and they like to pull passages down the line. They still hope Gordon, Henry, and James learned their lesson. Thomas was pleased that Percy was taking care of Annie and Clarabelle. He knew that Percy had promised Thomas. At the sheds, Gordon, Henry, and James were arguing and bickering to each other furiously. "This is your fault, Gordon," said Henry crossly. "You're the one who got us into this mess." "Well, that's part of the plan," said Gordon crossly. "It is not my fault." "Yes, it is your fault," said James furiously. They argued and bickered each other furiously as Thomas rolled up, burst out laughing. Well, well, well," smirked Thomas. "This is a good show while you three are fighting each other. And besides, move and exercise with your boiler and wheels." This made Gordon and James very cross, including Henry, since Thomas told Henry that he's fat and slow, and he told him that he needs exercise. Cheeky Thomas laughed as he puffed away. Thomas arrived at the station to collect some old coach to the next platform for the passengers. "Where have you been, Thomas?" asked Edward. Thomas told Edward that he was teasing Gordon, Henry, and James while they were arguing. "Look, Thomas, I know you like being cheeky, but you can't just tease them all the time." "Nah, who cares?" said Thomas with a smirk. "I can tease those big engines whatever I want, no matter what." And Thomas pulled out of the station, leaving a concerned Edward behind. When Thomas pulled in Elbridge Station, he spoke kindly to Percy. "Thank you for taking care of Annie and Clarabelle for me," said Thomas. "I do appreciate it." "You're welcome," replied Percy. The next afternoon, Sir Topham Hatt told Thomas and Edward that they can pull the passengers to the next station. The train was ready. Edward was coupled up to the end, and Thomas was coupled up to the front. The guard blew his whistle, and Thomas and Edward blew their whistles and set off to the next station. Thomas and Edward were proud to pull the passenger train to the next station. They were pleased and impressed. But while they pulled the express, they have no idea what could happen when they go up the hill. As they puffed up the hill, it happened. The heavy coaches pulled them backwards. Oh, come on, groaned Thomas and Edward. "We can do it, we can do it," whistled Thomas. We can make it, whistled Edward. They tried their best to pull them, but it was no use. Then they stopped. "Oh, it's no use," sighed Thomas. "We're never gonna make it." "Don't worry, Thomas," advised Edward. "At least someone can help us push the train for us from the back." "Is it Gordon or Henry or James?" asked Thomas. "No, Thomas. They're in the sheds for their punishments." "Oh yeah," thought Thomas. Meanwhile, as Percy pulled up to the last station, the station master came to see Percy. "There's trouble up the hill, Percy. Thomas and Edward tried their best to pull the express, but they couldn't. Would you go and help them, please?" "I will do my best," said Percy. "You can count on me." And Percy puffed away. Thomas and Edward waited and waited, but there was no one to help. Then they heard a whistle. "Who's that?" "I think," said Edward, "that might be Percy." And that moment, Percy came to help them. "Oh, thank goodness Percy's here," said Thomas. "Say, Percy, are you sure you're going to push the express for us up the hill?" "Of course I can," replied Percy. "I'm sure I'm strong to push the express for you." So Percy pushed the train, and Thomas and Edward pulled as hard as they could with a mighty chuff. "We did it! We did it!" exclaimed Thomas. "We done it! We done it!" said Edward proudly. At last, they pulled up to the next station at the end of the line. The passengers were very proud of them. "Thank you for helping us up the hill," said Edward proudly. "Well, I told you I can," replied Percy. The passengers gave 3 cheers to Thomas and Edward, and to Percy too. That night, Sir Topham Hatt came to see Thomas, Edward, and Percy. "Well done, you 3. I'm very proud of you." "Thank you, sir," said the engines gladly. And Sir Topham Hatt walked up to his car and drove home. Thomas and Edward spoke to Percy. "We couldn't have done it without you," said Thomas. "It was nothing less," said Percy. And Thomas, I'm giving you back your branch line. And to that, Thomas had to be content.